She is a journalist, a wife, a mom, and host of the Raising America podcast. We say good morning to our good friend, NewsNation's Elizabeth Prann. Good morning, Elizabeth.
Hey, Ken, great to be with you. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday. One of the happiest things I've ever heard because Friday is always a good day, anticipating the weekend.
Yes.
Just saying, just a personal aside. So
Mhm.
we have lots to talk about in the news this week. One, of course, one of the stories was one that hasn't gotten, I think, enough mainstream coverage, but it deserves to. The story of the 22-year-old in Westchester County, New York, just outside of New York City, who successfully sued her psychologist and surgeon
Mhm.
for giving her gender, as they say, I put this in air quotes, gender affirming care when she was just
Mhm.
16, giving her a double mastectomy. And when asked by the mother said, I don't want to do this. And the surgeon and the psychologist both said, without batting an eye, they said, if you don't, you're going to just say goodbye to your daughter now. She's going to be dead. She's going to commit suicide. So you just better do it. And this is the MO. This is what they're doing. And people don't talk about the fact that they make $100,000 for these surgeries or more. So when you hear this, I mean, as a mom, what goes through your mind? What that mother must have gone through.
And from a mother's standpoint, right? I have total empathy for all parents. We're all doing the best that we can. I don't necessarily have empathy for doctors who are trying to play creator. And whoever your creator is your creator the man upstairs? Is it science? Both of those things would say we don't have a C-section at 26 weeks because our narrative is we don't want to be pregnant. We don't pull cars off an assembly line when the brakes aren't installed because we want to make sure that we make a deadline. We don't play with fire. And we're talking about kids who are just getting bombarded by mixed signals. There's litter boxes in hallways at schools, right? There's social media telling them they should think and feel something. Their lives are already just a smorgasbord of messages, right? So why make it more confusing for them? They're not fully developed. I've been working in news for 2 decades. I've spoken with mothers whose sons have committed suicides because they were bullied online. And the mother said to me, they have these adult-like bodies, but these childlike minds, and they don't know that the consequences are forever, that what they're doing, these decisions are forever. So why, as adults, would we encourage something? You and I have had this conversation. If a 12-year-old girl says, I'm fat, I'm going to stop eating, because then she'll end up eventually taking her own life. So it's almost as if I'm looking at this photograph. You and I are looking at this photograph of a person who wants to change their life, and we're both coming to different conclusions. Why aren't we letting these kids just grow up? Just grow up.
Because there's money to be made, Elizabeth. As long as there's money to be made, this is the case. Look, there's something called body integrity dysphoria, BID, it's called. A friend of mine is a surgeon. He talks about this. That's when people look at any particular body part. It could be a toe, it could be their nose. It sounds funny, but it's serious. It could be a hand. And they say, I hate that hand, or I hate that nose. I want it cut off. If you went to a surgeon, the surgeon would be in jail if they cut off that body part. So why is it any different to cut off breasts or a penis if they're perfectly healthy? I remember I had to have my left kidney removed. It was diseased, but the adrenal gland on top of the kidney is still there. I remember asking my surgeon, why didn't you just remove it all? And the surgeon said, we don't remove healthy body parts. And that rang true in my head all these years. So if we don't remove healthy body parts, why do we remove entire breasts that are functioning fine just because somebody at that moment in time is going through something that says, I don't want them, but in 2 years may want them? It's crazy that we ever permitted it. Europe and Great Britain did allow it for 7 years. Now they no longer do allow gender affirming surgery for minors. Why is it that the medical community in the US is so vehemently opposed to that?
Well, it's poignant that you bring that up because, first of all, I had this conversation with my daughter when she said she wanted to do something. She said, it's a free country. I said, it's a democracy, actually. You don't really have any say until you're 18 and you're out of the house. So I'm just going to leave that right there. You talked about what's happening in Europe, and there are a lot of people, because there's two sides, so now I'm going to put on my journalist brain. There's those who say this case is not setting precedent. This is, look at the minutia. They're talking about the fact that she had body dysmorphia and that it is not necessarily setting a precedent for gender affirming care. But there are dozens of other lawsuits. I think there's around 28 across the country that are representative of the fact that detransitioners are now suing their medical providers. So Is it setting precedent? I'm pretty sure that she was awarded $2 million in punitive and monetary damages because it is setting a precedent, right? And if you look at the two doctors involved, there is proof. The jury decided that there was coercion there. So, of course, my journalist brain says that that is setting a precedent. And you will start to see these other cases look at this case. Am I right? I mean, we will start to see a movement, I think, as a parent, and it will be, the tides will be turning because these are children.
And the idea that the doctors are so fast to say, well, if you don't grant permission, she's just going to commit suicide. There really is not sufficient evidence of that. In fact, there's a lot of evidence to the contrary that says so many people who do have gender reassignment surgery don't realize after the fact that it isn't the panacea they thought it would be. I know, look, as a gay man, I know a number of people who are trans, and this one female to male transgender whom I've spoken to said, you know, Ken, it really depends on who your surgeon is. I said, what are you talking about? And now he said that a lot of people can't afford a really good surgeon. And so the results are not great. And they come out of it as the other gender, supposedly. And they're looking for their life mate, their soulmate. And nobody wants to be with them. They're not interested. So now they end up more depressed than ever because they're almost like a freak of nature. I hate to say it that way, but now they've been surgically altered and they're not attractive to anyone at all. And this happens. And then what do you do? Where do you go? And it's almost like a Frankenstein thing. These surgeons make their money, they're done. And then you have a specimen, an individual, a human being left permanently altered.
It actually almost makes my stomach turn because as a parent, you're really doing your best that you can. So if my son came to me and said, I have these feelings, I have these emotions, I would say, as long as you're not harming yourself or harming others, that would be my biggest takeaway. I'm going to support you in whoever you want to be, but I'm not going to do anything that's going to change or harm you until you figure out what the root of the problem is and what therapies, what other alternatives what roads can we go down? We see this a lot with the medical movement. We've done so many stories on ADHD where kids immediately get medications. Okay, totally support medication. I'm one of those parents who is dealing with that as well. What is the root of the issue? What other alternatives do we have? Why is it a first resort? And you see this big movement with doctors who are saying, let's do medication as the last resort. Let's
Well, oh, did we just freeze?
take away this.
Did we?
Am I back?
Oh, we
We're
just had
back.
a frozen. Okay, we got 30 seconds left. I want to talk about what's coming up on the latest Raising America podcast.
So I love this one because we just had signing day, right, for NCAA athletes, and we watched all those football players commit to schools. But what about NIL? What does it mean? My husband was a professional athlete for 17 years rather, and he played college ball, never made a dime, right? That's how it was 20 years ago. I spoke with one mother who has 4 collegiate athletes. 2 of her sons make more than her and her husband combined. They're making millions of dollars. They're collecting money from the collective, directly from the schools as of this year, from endorsements. So what is that like? We're going to take you behind the scenes so you can hear what this mother experiences. Like I said, 4 collegiate athletes who are absolutely raking. It's a whole new world out there, something I didn't know about. So tune in. We're on YouTube.
I love it. Host of the Raising America podcast, NewsNation's Elizabeth Prann. Thanks for coming on this morning, and we are coming right back.